Hot in here. I got my wrong cam shirt on. Yeah, we're live. Happy New Year to everybody. It's 1:30 in the afternoon. We stayed up late last night. It actually made it to our time, New Year. A lot of times in the past, we have, because we're on California time, so we watch the New Year's, we watch the ball drop during the actual time on the East Coast. So we're celebrating with our East Coast people. And that means that we can go to sleep like at 9 o'clock or whatever. This year we decided to stay up. We played all kinds of games, my son and I wish my older son Noah was here, but he was out doing his celebration thing, which is awesome. And so we stayed up, and then there may or may not have been some Roman candles or fireworks, which we heard them outside. So I know that there was something going on. So that was a lot of fun, but it was good. It was a good time. And so we celebrated and stayed all the way up till midnight and did a champagne toast and all that. I'm not a big champagne fan, but sometimes you got to do stuff. But to start the year off right, we all need to make, resolutions. And hopefully you guys are talking about, okay, first thing I want to do is I got to get something done on my project car, man. I got to get something done, anything, whatever it is. And I've got a lot of things that I want to get done. I'm as guilty as everybody else. In fact, more so. I should be doing more stuff, and I want to get that done. But I wanted to talk to you guys today about new math. And this comes from my wife, Lisa, who I love more than anything. And it made me realize that I've been a pessimist my whole life, that I need to adopt this new strategy and embrace this new kind of math. And my sons just laugh whenever we talk about this, especially because we always did a lot of shopping for Christmas and stuff. And so it's a great thing. My wife comes back and says, "Oh yeah, look at this thing I bought, shoes or whatever. Look at this. They were on sale. They were like 70% off. And then they took another 10% off. And so I only spent whatever, $169 on them. I saved $389. I'm like, no, you spent, and the old me, not the new me that's going to be the 2025 Richard, is like, no, you spent $169. No, I saved $359. So now I got extra money to spend. I'm like, I'm looking over my son, Owen. He's like, he's really good at math. He's like, I don't really think it works that way. But it does, obviously. And so it's just, I realized that it was just me looking at, if you look at those two, there are two equations there. One is the happy and the positive one. That's Lisa. And I need to be more like Lisa. And the other one is, oh no, you spent this amount of money. You shouldn't do that. No, you shouldn't be like that. And so I realized that this type of new math should be adopted by everybody, and I'm certainly going to try to do it. I'm going to be looking at the positive side of, hey, I'm going to get something and I've saved this amount of money, and that's a good thing. Look at the good thing, not oh, I can't believe I had to spend this amount of money. Look at the good part of it. And I think for me it's something that that we should adopt as a whole for everything that we deal with in life. Let's try to look at the happy side of it. Let's try not to be, judge people on one particular thing or whatever, or one comment that they made or whatever. There's a really great line in Ted Lasso that, and I don't know if I quoted this exact, but I'm paraphrasing. He said that I hope that all of us, or none of us are judged by the worst action. And I think that that's great. I mean, he's saying that obviously everybody makes a mistake, and for you to judge one person on that and not judge all people on that, or not to judge anybody on that, I think is a good thing. And so I'm just going to adopt this new philosophy. So I think it's going to work out much better. Hopefully, you guys. And the other thing I wanted to bring up in that vein, because here this is the new math, like coming right in, ushered right in with 2025, and that's that it's 2025. It's not 2024 anymore. So really, you get to erase and start over brand new in 2025. You get to erase all the expenditures that you made in 2024. Those no longer count. You have, starting this year, spent no money on project cars. Now, some of you may have already done that. Some of you may have started and jumped in early, and I applaud that. I think that that's awesome. But thing is, for the people that haven't, you should buy a cam. you should buy the wrong cam. You should go to richardholderperformance.com and get something, or go to Brian Tooley Racing, or get something from Airflow Research, or any of the millions of Summit, or whoever. Go get something done, because it's a new world now. It's 2025, and now you get to start over and go, look, I haven't spent any money. I've been so good this whole year, and now I get to so I get to start over. So I didn't spend thousands of dollars or whatever in 2024. I spent nothing in 2025. And then at the end of this, you get to start all over again. That's the great thing about the new year. We all get to do that. But obviously, seriously, we need a poll for today. Did you make any New Year's resolutions about your... Did you make any New Year's resolutions about your projects? I think it wants that to be possessive, so we're going to make it possessive. Let me know what's going on. I spoke to Jimmy this morning. Actually closer to this afternoon, but I spoke to Jimmy and said, oh yeah, by the way, I mentioned yesterday that Ben from the car farm and I probably would be coming to visit you, and we may be staying for a week just so that we can do lots and lots of chassis dyno testing with the Omni, so that we can run exhaust tests and intercooler tests and all sorts of nonsensical things. So it'll be cool. And he's like, yeah, just let me know, man. Let me know how many rooms I got to have, or beds or cots or whatever. I said, yeah, whatever you got. It's sleeping bag. As long as it's not cold, it'll be fine. It will be all good. And so we'll get to do chassis dyno testing, because it's good. I like all the forms of testing. It doesn't matter to me, ones, and you get guys that argue about it being not real world, or not being accurate, or this dyno's not accurate, or inertia dynos are not accurate, or loaded dynos are not accurate, whatever the thing is that they want to, because that's the old Richard. That's the old math. They need to adopt the new math and look at, like, hey, look, this is cool. I had this, and now I have this. I don't care that you don't agree with whatever the starting point and the ending point is. We got this much delta. We got to change. We added boost and we added power. That's a good thing. Look at the positive side. Don't try to complain about it. We should all be more like Lisa. So let me know in the poll and see what's going on. Bernard, YouTube, Eric, what's going on? 2 weeks till I get to unleash the floodgates on buying Mustang parts. You're at the starting gate right now. You're T-minus 2 weeks. I'm seeing you since last year. I know. It seems like forever, right? Did anybody here see it was all over the Instagram and Facebook and stuff. Did you see the New Year's celebration that China did with their fireworks and drone display? My hat's off to them. That was gangster. That was really, really cool. Big dragon, spaceship shooting stuff down at. I mean, yeah, that's cool. Have a holly jolly happy New Year to everybody. If we're gonna buy X things anyway, buy it cheap if you can. New tires and some new front end parts for my 08 F-150 STX. Be ready for a new sticker 4.6 engine plus new intake manifold. There you go. Shane just stopped by to drop you off a little happy new year. More vids coming. You keep watching, I'll make more. Got to get my race truck done and win a lot of races to pay for it. That's definitely good math. That's definitely racer math. Let's see. If I spend $10,000 on my truck and I win $1,000 in a purse, that works, right? Hey, Lisa would say that you won. That's nothing but good, right? We got to accentuate the positive. You wouldn't judge a person who picked an LS4 intake. We could help them, right? We can be positive and help them push them in the right direction, and not just point at them and make fun of them. Can 4-valve heads bolt onto a stock 4.6 engine? Yeah, if you have a 2-valve, you can make it into a 4-valve. It actually would be easier for you just to go to the wrecking yard and get a 4-valve with all of the trips that you're going to have to do to go to the wrecking yard to get all the 4-valve stuff to make your 2-valve into a 4-valve. It's a lot cheaper and a lot better just to buy the 4-valve. Looking at your fuel pump injectors. There you go. A few minutes ago, Turbo Sentra. Well, what are you waiting for, man? A written invitation? Haven't you ever seen Santa Claus is Coming to Town? Don't you remember the scene where he's talking to the Winter Warlock and he didn't know how to walk? You just got to put one foot in front of the other, man. Just step. That's what you need to do. You need to step. You can just step to those injectors. Ragtop, what's going on? Getting my 99 two-door Cherokee. 31,000 original miles on a 99? Man. Did you live life a quarter mile at a time? Is that what you're doing? Is that a 4-liter Jeep engine in that thing? Richard, haven't watched in a while. Probably will after this live, but 9line Garage just did a video about the Truck Plus cam in the truck. I think that's the one Jimmy sent to me. I think he showed me that. And is he the one that was deciding how much power it was based on the math counts? That's interesting. And I was going to comment on it, but the comment that I needed to make was longer than I wanted a comment to be. Here's something to think about. I think the guy did a great job. First of all, I salute him, and I salute guys that are doing math counts and stuff. Here's the problem with a math count and deciding on power output. So if you listen to his video, if it's the same guy, 2 things sprang out to me as a dyno guy. One is he showed 2 different runs from 2 different times with different air temperatures and stuff that had 2 different results. And they varied by what, if you did the calculation that like he was talking about on math counts, they varied by 15 horsepower or so. So if one of my Truck Plus cams made 15 horsepower less than another truck cam, I'd be really mad. They don't. They all make the same power. And in the test, if I had one that was 15 down, I'd be disappointed in myself. But the other thing, and this is really the big thing, is if you're using math counts to determine how much the power gain is, just rev your motor farther. Because if you rev your motor farther, you'll have a higher math count. Because airflow in the engine goes up. Goes up with engine speed. When we run a motor on the engine dyno with an air turbine on it, even after the power goes down, like even after we go past the power peak, the amount of airflow through the motor goes up. And so you'll see the same thing with an air measuring device going into the motor. So if you just did your, like this is an automatic and you did your shift point at 6,000, you'd get 1 math count. Now you'd want it to be consistent if you were doing that and have it always be at the same point. But if you just raised it to 6,500, you're like, hey, look, it's making this much higher math count because I revved the motor higher. And so that's why it's not, not perfect. I decided to stop going from 10 PSI to 25 PSI and hoping for the best. Yeah. Go from 10 to 15. Or I like to go in increments of 2, go to 12. And then, because that for me also, I get more data and I find that later on when I want to combine and mix and match and then do a cross-mogenation of all of these things later on to do other videos, that the more data I have is better. So if I have a whole bunch of data points running some turbo thing, like when we did the Big Bang stuff, we would go up like 2 pounds at a time. The whole time we're expecting the motor to break, especially on the first one anyways. But as we would go up, I like doing that and making sure that it's okay and making sure that it's not a problem. Being positive about the LS4 intake. Positive that it's the worst, whatever. Yeah, it is. Got to catch up on some stuff. Recently changed jobs and got behind on a few things. Building the emergency savings back up. That's important, man. You got to have that. Happy New Year, Lunchbox. People telling me I need to keep the MagnaRide on my Z11, or the Z01, but I need new ones. I can't find them. Are you having to replace the shocks? Those are pretty sophisticated, and I can't imagine them being inexpensive. $4-liter for now. Okay. Are you thinking about swapping it or putting a turbo on the 4-liter? You can also put 3 V heads on those instead of the 2-valve or the 4-valve. You could put 3-valve heads on it. 2016 Dodge Charger X Police. Got cop tires, cop suspension, new rear end and drive shaft done. Runs good now. That's a Hemi, right? 16. What Hemi is that? Is it 5.7? Gonna get this turbo 6-liter on the wagon and have some fun. And it won't make drag week this year, but next week or next year is gonna be good. Cool. I got Lisa. My favorite, the person I was most excited about this year that I got Lisa is a giant human-sized dog bed, because we sit in front of the fire and the dogs like to sit there. But we would take the giant pillow that we have off the corner section of our couch and throw that down on the ground and lay on that in front of the fire. But so now she has a giant dog bed that the dogs can lay with her and stuff. So I was most excited about that. Waiting on payment. I started a business to pay for my racing. There you go. I'm low-key considering swapping a Barra into the F-150. That's forward on forward action, man. You can't go wrong there. How would you explain timing on an engine to someone learning? Do you need from the very basics, like what happens? Basically, timing is just when you ignite the mixture relative to piston position. And what you want is the piston's going so fast, if you do the math on it, you want the expansion, because you're igniting the mixture, and when you ignite that, it expands. So you want that expansion to happen at the right time, so it's pushing the piston down. You don't want that to happen to start happening as the piston's going up. You want it to happen as it goes down. But as engine speed increases, you have to do that earlier and earlier so that expansion again happens at the right time, as on the downward side of the piston. Have you ever tested a twin turbo setup versus a single, but the twin turbo exhaust setup goes from a double to a single, back to a double to the turbos? A twin turbo setup, but the twin turbo exhaust goes from a double to a single and back to a double and then to the turbos. Why are you wiring the exhaust together and then splitting it back? I don't understand why you'd be doing that. You want an X pipe in to the things feeding the turbos? There'd be no benefit from an X pipe if that's what you're asking. The Maribera, there you go, Prestige. I'm new to the LS scene. Thanks for all the testing. Happy to help, Mark. If you come here, man, if you have any questions, there's lots of people here to help answer stuff. Only thing I need to do on the Nova is replace the 49-year-old leaf springs. Now, do you think the springs are bad or just the eyelets bad on them? The springs will get bad. The springs will get saggy and they'll lose their springiness like all of us do with age. I have the new ones. Just have to motivate myself. A spring swap is not a terrible thing. I mean, if it's cold outside and that's kind of bad, but it's not like that's a horrendous, all day kind of deal. I like the Big Bang engines. Me too. Now Richard V6 Pentastar engine. Same engine in my 2011 Jeep Cherokee. Okay. Good cam for an 08 Silverado 4.8 with long tubes, and plan on eventually putting a turbo on. I think I would pick my low buck truck camshaft for that. It's good on a 4.8. I would argue that for me, and this is probably, I don't know that I represent the rest of the people out there, but I think it even borders on maybe being a little bit too big for that. I'd like to see a smaller version of that. In fact, I talked to Brian Tooley about those guys building one, and they might be doing that. I'm hopeful my next order from Superfast Richie has a sticker for the rear window. We do need to do stickers. I'll talk to Jimmy about that today. But the problem with the sticker is not making the stickers. The problem with the stickers is we are working on a logo for the company. So we need to get that done, and then we could get all the other stuff done. It's holding back all of the merch, really. Richard, did you make a video on the second cam test that Eric did? No, I didn't. That's not for me to do. That's for Eric to do. And then I want to put an Atlas 4200 in the F-150 to replace the inline 6-cylinder it has. I think that would be a big step up. I mean, because I think it would take the 300, it would take a turbo version of that to make what an NA 4200 makes. What kind of timing do you normally see on moderate horsepower NA 6-liter builds? Almost without exception, every LS that we've run on the engine dyno runs best at 29 or 30 degrees of timing at the horsepower peak. you considered running modern engines in straight methanol with EFI and factory type ignition? I haven't run anything on methanol yet, but that is planned for 2025. We've run lots of E85 stuff, but a naturally aspirated engine on methanol, I don't think is going to gain that much. Like it doesn't gain that much on E85 unless you are limited, like Coyotes and some of the DI stuff from GM, unless you are knock limited and it's not allowing enough timing, or it has high compression that it tends to benefit it from a little bit more. But every time I've tried to run E85 on a naturally aspirated LS, it just doesn't really do very much. On the turbo stuff and blower stuff, it does a lot. Will 2-inch primary tubes be too big? 348 crank horsepower by 1.8? Yeah, they don't need to be anywhere near that big. I don't think you gain anything. I think you can potentially lose that. It doesn't need to be that big. I wouldn't. I think I would do 1 5/8. I might do 1 3/4, but I don't think I'd do a 2-inch. Springs are definitely bad. I didn't put the traction bars on before putting on the sticky tires. What would have been cool is and do a couple of launches, especially like the more that the tires hook up, the worse life is for the for those springs. And it had been cool to see them distort the way that they do. And the other thing that happens is, depending on how it's hooking up and how much flex you have and stuff, they distort at a different rate from side to side. So it'd have been cool to see them like do funky S shapes or side twists or whatever they're doing, how much ever deflection the eyelets are allowing them to have. People have no idea how much bad is happening when things like that are going on. Heard a funny noise on the hit after inspecting it. It was the pinion hitting the floor. Yeah, that's not good. You know, pinion snubber, right? Yeah, I'm looking at twin turbo 300 to make 400 wheel, where a built 4200 can do that NA. A 4200 can make 400 wheel horsepower NA? That'd be a lot. My bad, as I meant at Tech Talk like you did for the first test he did. No, because he hasn't released any of the data for the for that second test. I know what happened, but that's not for me to talk about somebody else's test until they release all that information. Is it true that some big blocks need over 40 degrees of timing to make the most power? Yes, it is. Some of them have really bad chamber designs, and also the chambers are big. Normally what happens is on a bigger chamber, a bigger volume chamber, you need more timing. We see this on, if you look at the timing for a 706 head versus, and then we put 317 heads on it. 317 heads normally want a degree or two more of timing, just because it's it's big and it's a bad chamber design, so that they need more timing. And big blocks usually want a lot. So an old school iron headed big block, not unusual for it to be between 36 and 40 degrees. Pick up 10 horsepower on the Sentra using methanol. Yeah, on boosted stuff, you should be able to do that. NA, yeah, I don't know. What compression is that? And maybe you did. I haven't tried methanol on NA stuff, only E85. Richard, what heat range plugs and gaps do you run on a 10-to-1 NA motor? I would run, we've run lots of stock plugs on those without any problem at all. I've also run 7s, 8s, and 9s, and even 10s on NA motors, more just because what we had available, with no change in power, or it doesn't do anything. So I'm not that particular on that. What kind of power output from my father's 63 Ford Galaxy 390? Let's sit and burn the tires off. I'd do a burnout the length of 3 telephone poles. Yeah. Is it a stock Galaxy? I don't know what you've done to the 390. Most of my various project ideas have been in my head for 10 years now. I know, you just got to stop and take one of them and make it happen. I have lots of things that I've designed that I need to make, like the Cadillac LS rocker thing. It tore the pinion snubber off the floor. That's not good. Was it axle hopping really bad? There are guys making 600 flywheel with 4200s NA. So is that like a dry sump, like 13, 14, 15 to 1 kind of thing, ported head, stack injection kind of thing. Would 1 3/4 primaries be restrictive on an NA 6 liter? No. We run 1 3/4 stuff on LS all the time. In fact, for a long time, we never had 1 7/8 headers. And whenever I've done 1 3/4 versus 1 7/8, anybody that tells you that that's going to be 20 horsepower is not correct. Building my O2 single cab 5.3. I've been doing a lot of research. What cams gives a lot of chop and horsepower? Well, you got to be big baller. Got to be a little more specific than that on choosing your cam. My low buck truck camshaft has what I call the perfect amount of chop. It also has really good low speed power. You can use it with a stock converter, and it makes good power and carries it out pretty far. If you want more power than that on the top, like my Truck Plus camshaft, for example, makes 15 more horsepower on the top, but sacrifices a lot down low. So ultimately, you have to decide which of those things is more important. And you're going to have to decide that on any sets of camshafts that you'll be talking about. There are lots of camshafts that you could put in there that'll probably do what you want it to do. So you got to decide on all the other things. After my second attempt, I got my motor and trans back, 6 years in the making. Now I'm trying to wire it all up, build new AN lines, and get it running. What cam would you suggest for an LQ4 with an LSA supercharger for 660 to 700 horsepower street driven? If you wanted to idle like a stock one, you could try the LS9, the factory LS9 camshaft. Or there's lots of good cams for that. Are you running the thing on pump gas? And what heads do you have on that? Do you have adapters to go to cathedral heads, or do you have rec port heads on it? Your experience with ported iron 302s, where did you find the light total timing? I don't know. I've never tried ported 302s. I think I may have only ever done 1 or 2 tests on those. And if you didn't, the porting is not really going to change the timing. The chamber changes that you make to the chamber might affect the timing, because the timing is almost all dependent on chamber. Who needs resolutions? All my projects are thoroughly built in my mind. Then you're winning, right? I have to have the money while not having higher priority things. The money is spent on. Yep. Full bore methanol race builds. Yeah. A stock 390 car was cleaned out by an old truck before I was born, but remember seeing the blue car sitting in our backyard. I think 390 stock ones were only like 330 horsepower or something like that. What is it? Uh, 320 horsepower. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Ford 390 produced 401 horsepower with the tri-power on it. Wow, that's fancy. Let's see what this says. Engine echo. I want to hear about the tri-power one. On a high performance version, you'd be looking at 375 horsepower and 427 foot-pounds. I'd like to know more about that one. Yeah, Prestige. Yeah, a GT45 solves lots of problems. Shattered pinion ones could make jewelry from the fragments. That's pretty small parts. Is milling a set of 243s better at proving low end torque than what do you mean by proving? If you mill them 30, I don't know. It depends on where you're starting. I think that our on the 706 and the 799 head that we did, I think that the difference in chamber volume was a measured chamber volume, not a hey, this is what they are thing. It was only 2.5 cc's. So I think you could probably get that with milling at 30. But that's not the only reason that one of those makes more low-speed power than the other. One of them also has smaller valves and a better coefficient of discharge and a smaller port. So it's not just the chamber. I know all the 799 guys want to point to that, but at 2.5 cc's, that's not it. The quarter mile improved by 0.8 and 7 miles an hour just by getting rid of my single 2.5 cat and dual flow master and going to true 3-inch exhaust. On what motor was that? 0.8 and 7 miles an hour. It's just like 70 or 80 horsepower. That seems like a lot. Is a 5.3 Monte Carlo SS car intake manifold okay with a single turbo? Yeah, it will work with a turbo. It's just not a good intake manifold. It's the least powerful intake manifold of all of the factory intake manifolds. I don't know if you can fit a better one. Some of the reasons that they made that on that front wheel drive deal is that because of the front accessory drive, you're limited. Like, I don't think you can just put a fast on there. I don't think it works, or even a LS2 or an LS6, or even an LS1 is better, but I don't know that those just bolt on and position the throttle body correctly. I think it interferes with other things. But if you're boosting it, you can. And it's down on power. It's just another pound of boost, so it's really easy to make up for. The Sentra's cold start's crazy. 22 degrees this morning. So much blue fire and eyes burning. Axle hop didn't happen in first gear, but on the 1-2 shift, it was violent. Now at the bars, it hooks up in first, but gets squirrely in second. So to be safe, it'll get springs. Okay. But it's cool when you do that stuff and you cure that. That's awesome. For the LSA LQ4, pump gas, but fuel system has flex fuel sensors set up with the Holley EFI heads or Speedmaster CNC ported. But are they cathedral port or are they rec port heads? Richard, go check out Doodles on Instagram. He does really cool cartoon drawings. He did a lot of roadkill skit drawings. Okay. Right now, the 5.3 completely stock. My plan is intake manifold, cam, fuel system, tune. I'm between the, let's see, I'm scrolling back. Man, it always just jumps ahead on me. The BTR and the TSP cam have a pair of 799 heads. Not sure if I should run stock for a while or 799. If you have a 5.3 and it's all stock, a 799 head is not going to add anything for you compared to a 706 head or an 862 head. You might want to replace a 706 head just because guys worry about them cracking, but not from a performance standpoint. And then what cams are you looking at? Specifically, just give me an intake duration number on those. No, the police could not catch them. Did the police have really slow cars then? My first car was an old Ford Starliner 390, beat up, no back window, but did burnouts. Yeah, the nice thing about those bigger motors is they did have a lot of torque. Forgot we'll have adapters for the cathedral ports. Aaron, happy to help. Old man had a Tri-Power 65 GTO. He remembers it being quite the machine for its time. Only other car that had the rep of tearing up the street back in the late 60s around here was an old 442 that had a 455 in it. 7 miles an hour was on a 420-inch small block. Oh, okay. So it was very restrictive and needed that modification. That makes sense. I have it in a 2004 Ranger truck. Intake doesn't fit. Have you ever done any testing on BMW V8 motors? I haven't ever run any of those on the engine dyno. I don't think I've ever even run any of those on the chassis dyno. I don't remember seeing any of those run. I have not. Got some more orders. That's good. Make sure if you're buying lifters from wherever you're buying them from, get lifter trays. Important safety tip. If you're getting lifters, get lifter trays. Timing is when the spark plug is fired. Does running a car fat or lead help with added heat from added timing? You also have to have the right air fuel. And changing air fuel might, and I say might because I haven't ever seen this happen, but might moderately change what you would want to do with timing. But what having extra fuel in there will do, if your timing is retarded, it will give you a whole bunch of extra fuel to burn out in the exhaust pipe, and it will throw flames. I guess that's why you see a lot of race cars running fat at idle. No, it might be that if they're carbureted ones, that you have a problem with tuning the carburetor that's tuned for running at wide open throttle during a drag race run, but not necessarily for idle, because they don't care about that. Lots of race cars have really big cams in them and don't idle very well. So you can have lots of issues there. Fuel injection, usually that's not a problem. Get your thing is to get the Swift back together. That's what your project goal is. I see. Ideally, this is something that fuel injection does that carburation has struggles with, unless they put a lot of time and effort into tuning them like they did for OEM applications. Is you want the air fuel to be what you want it to be under all conditions, every condition of RPM and load and stuff, and changing barometric pressures and temperatures and all kinds of things. And with fuel injection, you could make it do that. But with carburation, it gets hard to do that. Brick Casper, I got one more question for you. Is this with an automatic, and do you want it to run a stock converter? There's a hybrid between the M60 and M62 where you take the M62 4.4 liter block, put the M60 4-liter heads and timing gear on it, since the M60 has dual row timing chains and the M60 has oil squirters. Okay, so that's a thing. Are Cathedral 243 heads as good as rec ports? No. The most powerful factory head that you can put on an LS on something that has a 4-inch bore or more is a factory Cathedral or a factory rec port. A 243 is going to be down like 25 horsepower compared to a rec port. And I have videos up of 243/799 heads compared to a factory 821, 823. Those were LY6 heads, I think, that we did it on. But you can see what the power difference is. Have you ever tried to run a turbo with one bank of cylinders? Yeah, I tried to do it on a big block, and I didn't get it to work in the amount of dyno time that I had available with the things that I had available. But it is possible. I mean, the factory has done it before. Saab did it. With the right size turbo and the right amount of exhaust flow and the right NA power output and all that, it is possible. I don't know what the benefit would be, but for a lady, non-stock converter, but has not been ordered yet. Okay. So if you're going to put a converter in it, then you can go with a little bit more camshaft. Then I would take a look at one of Brian Tooley Racing's hot rod cams, or maybe even a red hot cam. What's the lowest you've ever sprayed nitrous on a dyno? Seems like all the tests you do focus on horsepower numbers with higher RPM. Would love to see you start spraying down at 3,000. We have. We've sprayed it on the load-in. I didn't do it, but Ernie did it like that. I can't remember what it was. I have to go back and look. But so it ran under load with the nitrous from the initial load-in all the way up. But there's no reason to do that. There's no reason to do it that way. And I yelled at Ernie for that. But because there's never a time when there's a stationary load with nitrous. That's a way to blow things up. It worked and it was okay. But it lasted for at least that one run. But you can run nitrous the whole time. But if you can do the math on it, if you're at 100 shot, you can do the math for 3,000 RPM versus 6,000 RPM. It's not hard to do. Head is done. Ordered a Haltech Nexus S2 and a digital dash. Rebuilding the teen shocks. Nice. I like the idea of 618 BTR, but I've heard mixed inputs about it. What would you recommend? I don't know what you mean. The lift has almost nothing to do with the power output, but I don't know what you're referring to here. What other goodies should I do installing a strange 2 cam on my... What's a strange 2 cam? Be interesting. Is it a sloppy stage 2? Is that what you're talking about? Be interesting. Do a twin turbo throttle body and make each turbo feed the other bank for a talking point at shows, not for performance. So you want a cross ram twin turbo and one side feeding the other one side feeding the other one. I don't know how much different that is than a twin turbo feeding the side that it's closest to. I don't know what that does that's different. Guy I work with runs methanol in a 68 Camaro, 16-1. Yeah, that'd be a good application for it. 427 aluminum small block Chevy. Power Glide 970s at 137. That would be good. 16-1, man. That's a well, but it's a 427, so that's a little easier to get that sort of compression with that kind of displacement. But yeah, that'd be a good application for methanol. That and something that has lots of boost. I wanted to run a single GTX 35 62 millimeter on a stock cam LS1 back in the day. Tuner said it's probably better to run it off one bank. Why is he worried about back pressure? I would think on that turbo selection on that size motor that you're just looking for a response, right? Because you're not looking to make a lot of power with that turbo with that motor. Some of the old Chryslers had cross rams. We need a YouTube budget build that you take to the drag track. Lines on a dynograph are easier than algebra. It's not algebra. It's just simple math. Have you seen the video Eric posted 8 days ago? He retested 4 cams with better heads and intakes. No, that might be the one that we're talking about. I haven't seen that if he's posted that. Stage 3 BTR on a 5.3, 224. Yeah, I wouldn't pick a 224 cam, I don't think, for a stage 3 for a turbo application. Building a motor for my 77 Ford Maverick, 302 flat top pistons, Edelbrock Performer RPM heads, E cam. Will have enough vacuum for my power brakes. Yeah, I think an E cam will be fine. He's worried about 10 psi at 1800 RPM sending the rods out. Is this, are you going to have a converter that allows you to do that? I haven't checked in a while, but are any of the BTR intakes going to be available to use a tick intercooler? I think that they're designing them to be able to accept high ram stuff later on. I don't know if they've done that yet. I don't know how different they are. If you could just make an adapter or something. I don't know how big the opening is. Oh, so it's a manual. I think you'd have to load it in high gear to get boost to come on at 1800 RPM, I think. But I see what you're saying. You're gonna have a lot of you can try that and see. I don't know if it will work. I think that you're in doing that, you're going around an issue that's easier to cure another way. In your opinion, for a street build, would you go LSA or turbo, stock bottom end, LQ4, CNC ported cathedral heads? A turbo will make a lot more power than an LSA at any given boost level. So then the question becomes, do you like the way that the blower looks more? And do you like the better boost response way down low before the crossover, before the turbo becomes so much better? Do you like that more? Is that more important to you? So that's the question you got to ask yourself. I have an SVO Mustang. Very cool. I'm on board so far. I like a T3 or T4 turbo would be a good setup for it. Stock injectors. If not, what would be a better setup? And with what injectors? You're going to have to put bigger injectors in it. The injectors that are the stock ones are not big enough. And what flange are you going to use? I think that has a T3 flange on it. So there are lots of T3, T4 hybrids that you could run. That we've run a bunch of those back in the day with Dave from Tiny Avenger. But you got to let me know what sort of power you want to make with that, and then we could steer you in the direction of a turbo selection and injector size. You also have to think about something better than the factory intercooler. And also, are you going to be porting the head? Or are you going to be putting a cam in it? What are other things that you're going to do to that motor to help it make power? There are versions of those that make a lot, but it also takes a lot. I had an XR4 Ti. I was just looking at one of those today. It was a Cosworth one that made like 700 horsepower or something. I'm like, God, those things look so cool. 40, 80 times 16 equals. Yeah, 80s would give you a lot of power. Any New Year car engine resolutions? Yeah, get some big bang motors done. Get the Omni tested. Put a 5.3 in the Mustang. And we got some really cool turbo tests that we're going to run. First car I stole from my dad was an SVO Mustang. You just stole more than one car from your dad? Guys weld up a Volvo double overhead cam. Yeah, I've seen those, the Volvo swap on them. I think it's fairly involved, but it would be cool to have a 4-valve version of that like they had in Europe. The Cosworth version. Can't imagine that that's cheap, though. I think ultimately, I wonder if you could just put a 4-valve Duratec motor in there instead. And a bigger one, like a 2.5 liter or something. Because then it's a stroker. Every engine I built last year was a big bang. See? We got to look at that as a positive, right? Accentuate the positive. You got to look at that as nothing but success. You're consistent. You got to find something that's good there. What engines have you blown up on the dyno? Well, when I was doing the TV show that I did with Chad, we did the Wheel of Death. And so all of those motors blew up on the dyno, but all because we were throwing BBs in them and we drained the oil out of them and we threw nuts and bolts in them and did things like that. The last one that got hurt. I don't know about blowing them up. We've had some get hurt, but not destroy themselves catastrophically. Saying road race or drag and drive. Saying road race or drag and drive plus road racing, change of 4 tires. So that's the only swap that you're going to do is just change the tires? The suspension is all going to stay the same for that? Just checking in, listen to you while I work my next transcontinental AK Gambler. Why is tuning into Hoff making the rivers solid so we can... Wisconsin is turning into Hoff. Oh, I like that. Be careful on your Bantas then, right? Now, what were the things that Tom-Toms that they were riding, right? Rover's in the house. Learning that 25 PSI is not forgiving. No, it wouldn't be, I don't think. I went through 10 blocks on my first turbo build in a couple years. On the 77 Ford Maverick build, will I need a stall converter? Did you mention that before? Did I miss that? Is that with the eCam? The eCam should have some kind of converter. I don't have any updates on the Buick. What is the best tire size for doing a dyno run on a lifted Chevy Silverado? Are you doing chassis dyno stuff? Chassis dyno stuff, most of the chassis dynos should be able to accommodate whatever you have. I know at West Tech, the guides, well, they're not guides, they're edging for the dyno so that you can't put your fingers in there, I guess. But on some of those, the edging is taller than the roller is by design. But if you machine those down, then the tire can actually overhang the roller. And then that way you could put wide stuff on there or big tire stuff on there. I've selected a cam, 271, 280. Is anyone using the 540 RAM? A good mid-range torque. That'd be a terrible daily driver cam. And did you get the 4.7 swap version of that? Because that's what we put in there, because that's what makes all the power. Yeah, that's not a camshaft I would pick for a driver big block. And if it's a boosted one, I wouldn't pick that cam either. Not because it didn't work with boost. It worked great with boost, but it's not necessary for a turbo thing. 6.6 Pontiac Bonneville 540 tunnel ram, velocity stacks. Okay, so you're not really driving that. Yeah, that will work fine. Going to try on the 70 Trans Am Ram Air 4.4-speed Pontiac. Need good shocks. Adjust to do it all. Old set of competition engineering. Traction bar still on it. Okay. What have you done to the suspension other than the traction stuff? Does it have conies on it? Does it have coilovers on it? Does it have like roller bearing control arms or any of that stuff on there? Have you ever worked on a nail head? I have not. I honestly don't remember seeing one of those run at West Tech. They may have run one when I wasn't there, but I don't remember them talking about a nail head. You're building a test motor for the new year. I'm building a motor. We're going to run the 5.3. The L33 is going to go in the Mustang, but it's going to have forged rods and pistons in it though. 6.6 Riviera. Those are cool. Those are sweet. Got the Riv. Yeah, we'll run the 5.3 and we'll do a bunch of turbo testing on it. We might put some AFR enforcers on it. We're talking about doing that because I want to have a cylinder head that we could offer on the store. And I think that's probably a good choice. So excited to see the Mustang. We'll do build videos on it too. Yeah, we'll do swap stuff because it's going to take, it's going to take a lot of swappy kind of things to make it work. 66 GS has a dual quad 425, 4 1/4. I need to get a transmission for the Mustang. I have I don't know if that works. I have a Tremec 5-speed for a 5-liter, but I don't know if that's a bell housing swap away from working on an LS. It's bone stock is Pontiac built, but all gone through many years back. Moved rear spring purchase 1 inch up. For anti-squat for the traction bars, Herb Adams for suspension trick. Yeah. But does it have springs and bars and that kind of stuff on it? What transmission you use for the Mustang? I don't know. We're talking about that. Probably some version of a T56 we're thinking. Is GM replacement fast charge shocks? Okay. I want to build the SVO for reliable street drag, looking for 300 horsepower. Yeah, I think for that, I would do a mildly ported head and a small cam. And then I'd put like a GT, probably like I'm thinking like a 57 millimeter will do that. But certainly maybe a 46 would do that. Richard, have you ever tested a reground cam? We've run reground cams a number of times in our Bonneville cars, but not any of the ones that people are selling for LSs and stuff. Springs new, bought in the 1990s. Okay. Are they WS6 springs? You got the big 1 5/16 front sway bar on there, and the rear is probably like 3/4 or something. What's the advantage of a reground cam? Usually it's cost, and sometimes it's availability, because you can't, for a lot of applications, they don't have cams available for them. So you have to change the specs on the stock cam by regrinding it. Richard, here's one thing I'm torn about. I'm thinking about putting that car together with a factory cam, but I don't know if it will make enough power on top. I don't think it will. I think the factory cam is a terrible idea. I think probably now obviously you're not going to use an XFI cam, but are any of the other cams better? Like, is the turbo cam better than the NA cam, or the NA cam better than the turbo cam? And I think a camshaft on those is worth a lot, particularly at the boost level that you're talking about. Richard, have you ever seen a Pontiac Bonneville at the Bonneville Salt Flats? I don't think I have, and I would kind of hope that I would want that to happen. I'd want that to be a thing. 70 had an 1 1/4 solid bar. Rear was 7/8. I think the one that we got it off of was not a 70. I think that we got it off a later big block car. Fun fact, T5 manuals and 4th gen F-body V6s use a Ford 10 spline input, not the GM 26 spline. That's just a matter of carrying it with the right clutch hub, right? And we could do that. We could mate a GM one to a Ford and vice versa. But I don't know about the thing I'm concerned about is the length of the input shaft. And obviously we could machine that if we had to, but I'd rather just put the right transmission in it. Maybe I could work out a trade for the Tremec for somebody. I need a T56 is what I want. You see Bonneville's at Bonneville for push cars. If I make it happen, would you come out and be a driver for a pass? For what are you talking about? A Bonneville? Are you going to try to set a record in it? Because you don't want to just take a car to Bonneville. You want to do all the stuff that you need to do. Scrolling. Any guesses on horsepower for what? What am I guessing at? I'll guess. I will. I'll do that because I'm crazy like that. Yeah, Jimmy and I were talking about turbos this morning, and we're excited about the new ones. The NA cam and turbo cam are so close, it's not worth bothering. Okay. Do you know what they are? Do you know what the specs are? How small are they? Are they like 170 or 180 at 50 or something? Where'd you get the ultra high speed tires for Bonneville? Those are Goodyear front runners. Those are top fuel tires, and you could get those by Goodyear. You can get them from Summit. They have them there. I think I still have some. They're old now, though. I don't know if they would be good anymore. I probably should throw those away just to make sure that nobody tries to run on them. The thing is, though, that they have like, what do they have? 2 or 3 miles on them, maybe total. And most of that is dragging them back. No, they'd have more than that because that was a 5-mile course. So yeah, so that let's say that they have, I don't know, 30 or 40 miles on them. Yeah, they use those front runners because those are designed for the combination of speed, the speed rating, and load. Although I don't think a top fuel dragster has a whole bunch of load on the front. Piggyback on the Bonneville. Have you ever seen a celebrity drive a celebrity? I'm sure that they did. They used to have the celebrity drag races. I remember at the NHRA thing that I went to, all of the celebrities drove. They did like they do at Toyota, where they do the pro celebrity race, but they did it drag racing. And the one that I was at, they all drove Olds Quad 4 Calais or something. I'd like to take my twin charge project to Bonneville. I'm a couple years out though. Ever heard anybody using nitromethane and nitrous oxide? I don't know why you couldn't add nitrous on top of that. But I think it would be more typical that they would just add a higher percentage of nitromethane. 5.3, 706 heads, milled 30. Truck Norris cam, valve springs, Trailblazer SS on E85. Okay. So it's a 5.3 with the Truck Norris and milled heads. What piston did you have in there? Do you still have the LM7 piston in there? Because now essentially what you have is an L33 with a Truck Norris cam, and that's going to make like 425. Between 420 and 425, a flywheel, the way that we rate it. New Year's resolution is to get my stuff done. There you go. What pound injectors do you think I would need? Well, for 300 horsepower, you don't need a very big injector. 80-pound injectors would give you 80 times 2 clear 640 times point. I don't know. We'll do 540. So with 80 pounders, you can make 500 plus horsepower on a 4-cylinder. So I would put something like that in there only because the 80s are inexpensive to get. And then you could make whatever kind of power that you want. You're gonna have to tune this anyway. And so with a 57 millimeter turbo, you could max the turbo out. Nitrous oxides we use for detonation, suppression, and top fuel engines, but it was later banned. Will we see the Datsun L28 on the dyno this year? I don't know about on the engine dyno. I'm thinking about talking to Oliver and seeing if he'll help me put that in the Z. Roger, I've never tested roads lifters. I'd like to see it. I'd like to do it. The 200 mile an hour club. So to be in the 200 mile an hour club, you have to not just go 200, which is not that hard to do. You have to break a record that's somewhere above 200 in a class. Depending on fuel pressure, 60 pounds are fine. Yeah, 60s would be enough to feed 300 horsepower. 200 mile an hour club in a 66 Bonneville. Probably would need all 5 miles. Yeah, Bonneville's not terribly aerodynamic. The weight has nothing to do with it, but that's not a very aerodynamic car. But the nice thing is that you can make going 200 in a Bonneville would be not hard at all. That would be a 5.3 with the turbo in it. The Goodyear land speeds are different from front runners, although they're made in the same mold. The OEM turbo on the Ford 2.3. Some have Garrett GT28s. Okay. Have you tried any of the DLC cam lifters? I have not, but the DLC stuff works really good. I mean, that's pretty tried and true. I did a pimp ECU on mine and pushed the OEM turbo. We've run the OEM turbo for everything when Dave had his SVO turbo. And then I want to say he put a 57 millimeter on there. And I think that did 400 at the tire. But I don't remember which one it was, though. I just remember him, it was a lot of years ago, but I just remember him talking about the size of it. How much power can a stock bottom end 350 hold? It's from a 3rd gen Corvette. Is it a 4-bolt main block? The block itself will hold a lot. The twin charge project is a 79 Coupe de Ville. Okay. Also not a terribly aerodynamic car. Box body 10-1. Ryan, are you asking if flat top power comparison of heads, or what head are you going to put all those different valves in? The Pimp is a plug-and-play mega squirt, bypassing the OEM math and running speed density was a big gain too. Yeah, if you get rid of the mass air meter, that's a better deal. If you can have some sort of standalone on it, and you can determine the exact airfield, or you could provide this exact airfield that you want and the exact timing curve that you want, rather than try to use trickery to use the stock stuff, that would be a better way to go. How much ring gap on a 350? I'm thinking of getting a top end kit and maybe a nitrous plate. Parts are hard to get there. If you're going to try to turbo a stock bottom end one, I would definitely take it apart and put ring gap in it. And you can just put it back together with all the stuff that you have. So that's not a big deal. You have to change the gaskets more than likely. But a cam would be definitely a good idea. And then you make good power with a turbo on that. Got 1 more minute. Did you make any New Year's resolutions about your projects? 55% saying yes. What were the other 45s? You guys didn't say, hey, look, I'm gonna get stuff done. I'm in make it happen mode for 2025. I mean, it's the first day. What have you gotten done? Did you go buy a cam at least? You know, because F it, buy a cam. The mega squirt, the negative squirt. I like that. Did it ever have that nickname? Had the auto tune feature. It was a breeze smoothing out the maps. So it did. It has closed loop essentially, right? LBD. That happens. There. Last night it was funny. We were getting ready for New Year's, and it was getting to be like 1 minute or whatever. And Lisa chimed in with her high wake up the dog voice and said her excitement voice. And the dogs were like, "What's going on? We're flipping out. We were sleeping. It's way past our bedtime." What did I get done? I stayed up till 6:30 and stayed in bed till 14:30 with the dogs and the cats laying on top of me. Hey, winning. Fixed my Coleman generator. There we go. Big snowstorm coming. Fixed up the 44 Gen 6 truck. Nice. I showed Lisa, and she had already seen it, but I showed her an Instagram post of a guy somewhere in the snow, and it's probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet drifts. And he took his snow blower and made a little racetrack for his dog. So he just trimmed out that section of it. So it's a little path about this big, big enough for the dog, whatever the width of the snowblower was. And he just made a track. And so the dog could go in there and it was doing these like high speed loops. It was awesome because dogs are happy. Tom, I've been working on install of an M90 on 4.8. I saw that. I commented on your deal. I want to know, are you guys going to run that on the dyno, Tom? I'm curious to see what's going to happen. I'd like to see it, in the car, in the real world. People. Good show. And on that note, but it is time to go, but I will see you guys all later.